Hello and welcome to JRock's Babylon. I am your host, Jason JRock Houston, and I'm honored to have with us a legendary a metal drummer from the band Warlord, Mark Zonder. Now, Mark, I was really looking forward to this because, I was quite interested to find out from you. The band's got like a 40 plus year career yet. Being a band from Los Angeles, you guys have never played a gig in North America. Let's talk a little bit about that, first of all. That's pretty amazing.
Well, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. Well, it's an interesting band. Um, Basically, the bottom line was back in the day, 83, 84, we were not the flavor that was happening in LA. Everybody talks about like the LA scene, and it was
Sure,
crazy. I mean, it was great. But it was Rat, Motley Crue,
sure.
Warrant. I don't know about Warrant, but whatever. You get the idea. It was
Yeah,
that
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
band. And Warlord was more of, Black Sabbath meets Rainbow meets Uriah Heep. So it wasn't as easy for us on all aspects because we were
Sure.
kind of, yes, we were in LA, but we were the odd man out. Also, our biggest problem was having a singer that fit that we could actually go out and play gigs with. People don't realize because you always hear, oh, they didn't play any gigs, but we rehearsed like twice a day with people in our studio.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
we played all the time. Playing was everything to us. So that was kind of the problem. And then it just kind of, as time went on, you get this singer, you get this singer, you get that singer. And, we played a few gigs and, Bill was actually very, very ill.
Oh,
And
wow.
that,
Yeah.
that it wasn't anything sudden when he passed. People ask me all the time, oh, did it come as a shock? And I said, no, I saw it coming for about 12 years, just because of his ailment. I mean, we talked all the time and just, sometimes he was just down on the couch for days at a time with illness. And, it was very tough to obviously go play gigs, but
Oh, sure, sure. I
that's
didn't
kind of the
realize that now.
story.
Wow, wow. So that's kind of like, when Freddie Mercury became ill and the other guys in Queen knew he was sick. But Freddie's like, I don't know how long I have, guys. I want to kind of, this is what I do. I want to continue making his music as long as I physically can do it. Is that kind of was the case with Bill?
Well, it's a little of that. It's a little different than the Freddie story, but what it has even a little bit more is he repeated himself that he wanted us to continue. And he said to me many times when he was alive, "Hey, Mark, just go get a guitar player," because we had gig opportunities,
Mm,
but he was so ill that
wow.
you expect him to travel to Europe and then play. No, it wasn't going to happen. And he had like more of stomach issues than anything else. And as everybody knows, when your stomach's bad, you can't even think.
Yeah.
Everything goes to the toilet. But no, said, "Hey, why don't you just go get a guitar player and just go play the stuff?" And when he was alive, I didn't think that was a good idea. I just kind of waited on that one.
Sure, sure.
Um, and then also he told us that he wanted us to continue the music. I mean, we have emails and texts and phone calls. Bill was about Warlord. Bill wasn't about Bill. It's
Yeah,
odd.
yeah,
He was about the band. He was the ultimate team player,
yeah.
and he just wants the music to live on in any form that it possibly can. So that's basically what we're doing, as well as we all enjoy it and
Sure,
we all
sure.
totally into it.
I mean, it's sad when you lose a member like that, a key member, like especially the front man. But you know, bands have that hard decision to make. I mean, like when somebody dies, do we quit doing the band? Do we carry it on? In his honor. It's very much up to, I think, the band and the individuals that are involved. I was curious, did Bill live long enough to see kind of the modern day technology? Even of like just emailing each other back and forth and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, no, but the other thing you have to remember real quick, getting back to your just point, Warlord was Bill and I, period. Okay.
Okay.
So it was kind of like my decision, and I don't mean to sound aggressive or whatever you want to call it with that, but it's not like we had a band of six guys and everybody was there forever. Yes, we had various members come and go, but it was up to me to make the decision. And
Sort of
that's
a
why
core member.
when
Okay, that's very interesting because I was kind of curious in stand up interview. Oh, getting an interview with the drummer. That's kind of interesting because typically, not. I mean, unless you're talking about a guy like Carmine Appice or something like that, the drummer's not typically the main one you talk to. So I always dig that anyways when you get a chance to talk to other members of the band, get their perspective.
well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard the two records that I did called A through Z?
No, I haven't. To tell us a little bit about that, and then I will have to check it out and have you back on, Bill.
Well, basically the point of that is you have the drummer who did everything, produced it,
Yeah,
everything.
Yeah.
from beginning. You if you go look up the videos that were out, like the
Uh,
pre-video, it's with myself and Ray Alder, the singer from Fates Warning.
okay.
And so no, drummers can do things. Drummers aren't just
Sure,
going tap,
sure,
tap,
sure.
tap.
Um, now I seen you guys release something called the Lost Archangel, which is kind of a collection, I guess, of different songs and live cuts. So you want to talk a little bit about that? I think that came out last year.
Yeah, we're just putting, cleaning out the vault, as Giles, our singer, would say. It's just like there's all this material that's sitting there. And obviously, Bill has passed. So it's kind of, honoring him. Also, it's basically what it's really for is the fans. Um, Honestly, I didn't have a big interest in it. I have a big interest in moving forward, not necessarily going backwards, but it's stuff that we did. Bill and I were working on various things. I have it in my computer. It's funny you asked that
Yeah.
about what's Bill around with the technology. Yeah, he got into Cubase and he got into recording programs and recording his guitar and keyboards and stuff on a computer. So he got into that
Oh, that's
a
cool.
little
Yeah,
bit.
to hear that.
He got in that, the whatchamacallit, the Holy Empire was done
Yeah,
that way. And we have all the tracks, but no, it's all just for the fans. It's like that
yeah.
archive stuff. It's not like, hey, look at this brand new album. It's like, okay, here's stuff me and Bill were jamming on in
Yeah.
1984 that never made the record.
I kind of got that feeling from what I read, and that's why I asked. I wanted to kind of clarify that. And the cool thing about what you're doing here, Mark, is the fact that, like you said, the band's been around all these years, but you never really had the opportunity to get out there and play live. And I think if you plan is to move on going forward with this band with new members, I think it's cool. A great way to pay tribute to Bill. Say, okay, you know what, we're moving forward, but we want you guys to check out a little what came first. Especially I got to be honest with you. I never heard of the band, but Michael Brandville, who's your published, he's given me a lot of great interviews over here. So I seen that he's working with you guys. I was reading the press release on the band. Brave World, is working with this great legendary band, uh, Warlord. And I was reading up on the band, and the more I read, it's like, okay, they've been around since 1980, but they haven't done too much. What's the story? So it's great to be talking to you. And as far as moving forward, you guys have this kick-ass tour coming up of North America, very first time ever with Onslaught. So let's talk about that.
No, we're very excited about it. The fact that we get to go out and play, and we are playing 17 of the classics. So we're not that kind of band that like, hey, check out the new records and we'll play one or two songs.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about Warlord that I always think of, like you said it, we haven't played. It's not like some guy goes, oh man, I've seen him 14 times at the local bar.
Uh,
Nobody in America has seen the band. And even the European dates that we played, it's not like we saturated Germany for 40 years or something. It's like,
yeah, that's see again. That's what's interesting talking about you because again, I kind of like the first gig it said was in Germany in 2002. I'm like, wow, okay, they've been around since 1980. They didn't play there. Wow, what's the story? There's
no.
got to be there's
Well,
got to be something. Yeah,
when the band quote, it didn't even really break up.
yeah,
Bill basically just got tired of, okay, we do Deliver Us. It goes over extremely well. We do the Cannons of Destruction, which was a way of us trying to PR ourselves to the world because there's no internet back then. So we were thinking,
sure.
this is a European band. Let's get the band in front of a European audience with video. And Bill just got sick and tired of putting all this energy and effort into it, and there was basically no response. I went off to play with Fates Warning for 15, 16 years or whatever.
Oh wow,
And,
yeah,
all during that time we were in contact, and I always told him, hey, anything you got, let me know. And then we came back out with Rising Out of the Ashes with Joachim Kahns from Hammerfall.
yeah.
And it's just things just didn't,
Yeah,
line
and
up
it's
for one
it's an
reason or
interesting
another.
story too because again, not only is the band like been waiting all this time to get up there and perform, but I imagine so have the fans. So how excited are they going to be when you guys hit the road? What's interesting, it seems like because everything I read, legendary metal band, Warlord, and you guys have kind of got just I guess simply for the fact the band's been around that long, got this little cult legendary status. Never played like except for one gig in Germany. Now you got the upcoming tour, so the excitement and everything between the fans and for the band, I would imagine, is just huge.
Well, we're going to find out how big that audience is. What's very cool, though, is we're going out and playing all the music that everybody remembers.
Yeah.
So when people come to see us, it's note for note like the record. We don't change anything. We don't have blues jams. We don't play Smoke on the Water. You're going to hear
Yeah.
Warlord as you heard it 40 years ago.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
band has never, ever been tighter. The guys are 110% Warlord, and there's kind of a youthful energy because the guitar players and the
Yeah.
singer are younger than the keyboard player and the drummer. Let's just leave it
Wow.
there.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a whole excitement. I mean, there's a million videos of the gigs that we
Yeah.
played. You know, in Italy, the festival there, that was great. So no, the band's great. The band's very excited. I'm just very excited. I haven't played in the United States probably in 20 years, and
And you're from here, but it's funny you say that because I do know that's why a lot of the music festivals are in Europe because the Europeans seem to really love their metal bands and support them a little more than they do in America. That's a shame, but so when you guys did do a show in Germany, what kind of reaction did you guys get?
oh no, we've played, I think over the last couple of years, we probably played 40 shows, 45 shows or whatever. We played everything from Belgium to the Netherlands to a lot of German dates, Italy. Oh, I can't forget this. You can't forget Greece. You know, Greece has always been, you know, I don't want to insult anybody, but that's kind of a number one thing for some reason. I'm not sure if they had the big attraction because Bill was Greek,
Oh,
obviously.
maybe, yeah,
Bill
who knows?
Thomas was Greek, or just the music resonated. But the Live in Athens DVD that we did with Bill and actually Giles was singing then too. I mean, if you watch that video, you'd think we're
Yeah.
Iron Maiden or something like that. You know what
So,
I mean?
when you decided that, okay, I'm going to continue on with the band, and you started searching for your new frontman, did you want somebody that could do it like note for note, just like Bill, or did you want him to kind of bring his own little taste into the band as well?
Well, he had to do both. And Giles was the obvious choice just because he had sang with the band before. He had also been on record with us. But at the same time, he was the guy who got Warlord. He was really, really good friends with Bill. He'd go visit Bill in Florida and
Yeah.
hang out for a couple of weeks and sit on the couch and watch old 1980s reruns of Bonanza, like American TV. And Bill was into that and Giles was into that. But no, it was more important than to find, Steve Perry or David Coverdale or
Yeah,
even Dio. Well, Dio, sorry, Giles, but if we could have gotten Dio, you would have been out. So
yeah.
sorry. But it's more about a guy that just encompasses it and gets it.
Uh,
And yes, you need to sing the original song, the older songs,
yeah.
pretty much note for note. You can have a little kind of thing, but don't go off into like a blues jam,
There you go.
the
Yeah, yeah,
guitar players. Um, but moving forward with new material and different things, I want everybody to bring their personality to it. But everybody gets the Warlord sound. It's like Jimmy, the keyboard player, has old sounds that Bill used to use dialed in, and we use those. And so when we go play live, it sounds like the record. It's not all of a sudden
yeah.
everything new.
So when you guys do go in, maybe after a tour and start recording, the new music and writing it, do you plan to kind of stay within that Warlord kind of box of sound, or do you want to kind of branch out? Okay, well that's what we did in the future, but let's just see where it takes us.
We got a really good rap punk metal thing going happening right now. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
of course it'll always be in the Warlord style. And Bill will always be there. Bill will always be standing there going, "No, that's not quite working," or "What the hell are you guys thinking?"
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
whatever the case might be. But we're pretty entrenched in it. People have to realize too, and they don't. But going back to the first days of Bill and I meeting, I think we spent a year Bill and I in a warehouse, like an auto warehouse. It was
Oh,
freezing and it was unbelievably, the reverb was ridiculous because it was all stone. It was just him and I,
wow.
and we were jamming on this and we were jamming on that. And I'll never forget jamming on this song and that song and different things. So that's where the whole Warlord sound developed, and it's hard to say that the drums aren't part of that whole
Oh, sure.
Warlord sound.
Yeah,
So it's not like, a band where like, half the band, half the original band is still there. Let's just put it that way.
yeah.
And I'm very, very vocal and strict on going, nah, that ain't,
You should be.
no.
It's your baby, right? I mean, you're the one that started it, so
Well, the other guys have come in as foster parents. Let's just put it that
But
way.
still,
And but yeah, there's a certain thing when you're there from the very, 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 very beginning
yeah,
that gives you a sense of just inside. No, that ain't gonna work.
yeah, rightfully so
Ah,
too.
no.
I mean, you've been the guy that's been there from the beginning, and like you said, as far as carrying on, you have a guy that gets to decide that, and um, I think it's great that you're still part of it because could you imagine if they were doing it with another drummer? It just wouldn't be the same.
They wouldn't.
They wouldn't dare.
I don't think that one's gonna fly. That would be a tough one. I guess you call that a tribute band at that point
There
in
you go.
time.
There you go.
But let's make something very clear to the fans, okay? This is this is without the fans, we'll just be sitting in the basement. So we
Sure, sure.
value the fans and we're going to give them Warlord. It's going to be Warlord. But remember, we didn't kick Bill out of the band.
Oh no.
There's certain situations we just can't do anything about it. So we're just honoring his wishes to continue. If he would have said to me, "Hey, Mark, I know this might sound really bad and everything, but I've been thinking about it, and when I pass, I just want you guys to fold it up and put it away," we would have honored that.
Wow. Wow.
No
See.
problem. No problem. It's again, it's people need to know. Bill and I were a partnership for a gazillion years. We never had one disagreement or argument about anything.
Wow.
You know,
That's not you can't say that too often. A lot of these
nope.
bands, I'm sure, Mark, if you had the power, he'd still be here doing it with you, right? I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, it was so painful for me to be working with him toward the end, and I knew that he couldn't do it, and we'd send files back and forth, and all of a sudden it'd be weeks, and I'd get in touch with him and he'd just say, "Hey,
and, and,
physically,
and his
can't do it."
health being what it was at the time, and you being a perfectly healthy guy, that must have being that close with a guy like that. You must have thought, man, look at this guy's what he's willing to go through just for our band, to
Oh no,
yeah,
absolutely. He was all about, like I said, he was all about Warlord. He wasn't about Bill. Listen to
yeah,
the
yeah.
music. I mean, it doesn't sound like Ingve where it's just all guitar and
No, no,
and
no, yeah,
Ingve's great. And Ingve's
yeah.
great. I have no problem with Ingve. He was actually at Warlord Manor a few times,
Oh
sitting
wow,
watching us play. But that Bill wasn't into that. Bill could do that if he wanted to. Bill
yeah,
could basically do whatever he wanted, guitar wise. He was about a band, you
sure,
know.
sure,
He came from the Deep Purple school. It was about all the guys, not
yeah.
just one guy.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, Mark, I'd love to ask you, I always love to ask people, can you tell us a story of how you guys came up with the name Warlord? 'Cause I think it's very fitting for what this is.
Well, that's all Bill. That's a Bill question.
Okay.
He actually had, and people don't understand this because we weren't that big of a band and people
Yeah.
don't know, but he had a whole thing with, as you know, the guys in the band had different names, Thunderchild, Destroyer, Damian King. And then as we changed singers, it was Damian King too. He had a whole thing planned out, movies, TV show, books, and going down that line of albums that possibly were featuring one guy and telling the story. It was all
Wow.
about telling the story. It wasn't just like
Yeah.
we all love Kiss and God bless thing, but there was no story per
Yeah.
se. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, he was the cat and he was
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Gene Simmons is and Paul Stanley. I mean, they're their characters. I get it, but Bill was doing it like the real intellectual thing, and
Oh, wow.
it was going really deep.
Wow.
And so that's his
I dig that.
quote
Yeah.
concept. I was along for the ride on that one.
And obviously you were the Thunder Child being the drummer, but um, what did you think of your name? Was that
Oh,
something you
I
picked out or
loved
he
it.
gave it to you?
Oh, he gave it yeah, it was him. I didn't know. It was great.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I'm a huge Kiss fan myself. I love everything about the band. What I love is they're so large in real life, and you get the ultimate rock show. But I would say where Kiss kind of is different from than Alice Cooper, who is really the originator of that theatrical rock. If you go to an Alice Cooper concert, I even seen him a few years ago at the Orange County Fair of all places, and he put on just as big of a show as he would in an arena. And at probably 75 years old now, Alice can still kick ass, but you go see an Alice Cooper show, he does tell a story. That's all that he does.
Well,
Yeah,
and that's where when you look at
that's right.
Queensryche and
Yeah,
Mindcrime and bands have tried that, but Bill was doing that in the 80s.
yeah, yeah,
It just didn't get to the level of some of the other ones. But you
Yeah.
know, when you watch that video and you see those, you know, the disciples with the hoods on and the candles. I mean, Bill and I and a friend of ours built all that stuff in the back of Warlord Manor. We went to the costume shop and bought the robes and the
Wow.
candles
Wow.
and we built those platforms. I mean, it's like we were trying, we were
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
something
Now,
good.
with what he had planned with all these books and maybe movies and stuff, now with Warlords kind of coming back, is that something you would ever even envision him trying, or you just,
Nope. The beautiful thing about Warlord is Bill and I stayed in our lanes. Okay. I handled all the business. Um, and then he handled, quote, the music. And obviously they blended together. But no, this isn't a band where the bass player is going to do the album cover because we feel sorry for him or
okay.
or his girlfriend or whatever. It's about the band. And it was very much a team. Bill and I both came from backgrounds of organized sports where everybody on a team has a role.
Yeah,
Okay. Not everybody can be the lead singer. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
kind of like
sure,
everybody
sure.
had a role. And that's what Warlord was, and that's why it worked.
And now
You know?
I've heard Warlord described as power metal influenced by the new wave of heavy metal. I can kind of hear some of that in your guys' music. How would you describe it?
Those weren't the influences really. It was happening at the same time,
Okay.
but the real influences is, you know, Deep Purple and Rainbow. Bill was a huge Blackmore fan.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so you take that, you take a little Sabbath. You could throw a little Rush in there for good measure. We never really got way out there in the proggy kind of thing, but there was some stuff, and we were both growing and learning at the time, you know, and things were evolving, and you could tell things from like Deliver Us to maybe Aliens
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
both the um, songwriting and the playing was starting to change. You know, you get into a little Mrs. Victoria, and it's kind of a little progressive and
Sure,
kind of
sure.
thing. So it was moving around, and we were both just growing, is what it
Yeah,
was.
in fact, I even heard it described as power metal, which I didn't really hear about. I hear more of traditional kind of metal. But what's interesting is last night, prepping for the interview, I was listening to the song "The Lost Archangel," and to me, some of that song sounds a little almost operatic. If you know operatic metal, I guess.
Well, Bill was that again, not toward the end, but after the band broke up, you know, Bill was doing his kind of solo thing called Lordy and Guard, where he was looking more at like movie soundtracks, like things that
Okay.
were longer. They were more cinematic. It wasn't so much 3 to 4 minute songs that kicked your ass,
Sure,
you
sure.
know, like in a rock thing. He was going in a different thing, really using a lot of keyboards. You know, he was using a programmed drum thing just to have
Yeah.
something there, but he was looking more the thematic, like you said. There's all kinds of stuff that they went that way. That wasn't really a Warlord thing because you can tell when it was he had a very defined line. Okay, is this Lordy and Guard or is this Warlord? And so it kind of worked that way. But yeah, he was heading toward he wasn't heading, he was there. He was
Yeah.
actually doing it.
Yeah, and so let me ask you, because like you said earlier, Mark, that when the band kind of went on hiatus and it was inactive for a while, you went on and did other things. But in the back of your mind, did you ever kind of, I would assume because you're doing it, you always have kind of have in the back of your mind, I want to get back with Warlord, and I want to see if we can finally, at least do something before the band really does fold.
Well, Warlord was always the coulda, shoulda, woulda
Yeah.
band. It was always that band that I sat back and I went, you know, this is what it really boiled down to. Besides the relationship that Bill and I had, that was basically magical, both musically and business wise, as far as just it was smooth.
Yeah.
Um, there might be better singers, better drummers. There might be bands that had, you know, better looking guys, but Warlord had the songs. Bill had the songs. And that to me was what would stand the test of time. And obviously, that kind of proved me right, I think.
Yeah.
It's the song. It's the song that everybody remembers. It's the song that when they hear it, they flash back to 1983. You know, it's like walking into Oz Records and Brian Slagle before Metal Blade, or when he was starting Metal Blades behind the counter, you put on a tape of Winds of Thor, and 4 bars in, he goes, "Oh, you guys want to be on Metal Massacre too?" You
Oh,
know,
wow. Yeah, yeah. I was
and
reading. Yeah,
that's where it started.
yeah,
It was that generic and simple. Now, it would have been great if Brian was starting, you know, Geffen Records
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah, or something like
starting
that. Yeah.
A&M Records, but No, it all
But
goes
you can be proud, Mark, that you did it your way. If you know what I mean. You didn't. I don't think anybody can ever accuse of this band of selling out. I mean, you're coming back after all these years. And what's exciting is I kind of, after talking to you today, kind of think myself that maybe Bill's, watching down on you and loving this because it seems like this little band that kind of, almost was, but never really exploded in a big way is finally getting their chance, going on this tour with Onslaught. And before you guys even hit the road, you're getting this great PR. I'm reading up all about the band.
Oh no, absolutely. And the truth of the matter is, when that little intro tape starts, 1984, the beginning of the end, before Lucifer's Hammer, I mean, I always Bill's always there. I
Yeah,
mean, he's there. I mean, he can't not be because all those songs are his songs. So
yeah,
he's always there. And the good thing is everybody in the band realizes that and everybody embraces that. No one knew Bill except for Giles and myself, obviously.
sure.
And the truth be told, these guys are so young, they probably, now that I back it out, some of them might not even been born when
And
we
with that being
were.
said, I was curious. Do you happen to know the newer guys in the band? Were they at all familiar with who Warlord was, or they had to
Oh,
learn the songs?
no, the truth is, Giles obviously was. Giles knew who I was. The other guys in the band knew who I was,
But you were
who
doing
I
it at the time.
am.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, with Fate's Warning,
Sure.
and they were all kind of dabbling in that little progressive world and kind of thing, and they knew. Jimmy Waldo and I never crossed paths until we worked on the Graham Bonnet stuff together. But we were in that same circle, and I knew who he was, and I would think he might know who I was. He wasn't really big into the Fate's Warning kind of prog kind of thing. He was more of like the straight up rock kind of thing with Alcatraz and those bands, but. No, they weren't big Warlord fans at all. I mean, I don't when it was happening, I don't even think some of them were born. Let me think about
If
this.
you got Jimmy Waldo in your band, it's a pretty good guy to have because I came to find out that he even played on the only Quiet Riot album, not to feature Kevin Dubrow, but besides playing on it, he was very involved with the writing on that album.
Yeah, Jimmy really needs to either write a book, have a TV show, or do a movie or something. He could tell you stories. I mean, he's been there, done that kind of thing, and he could tell you stuff like that
Yeah,
no one knows about. He could tell you the whole story of sharing this enclavia room with Peter Frampton. You know what I
wow.
mean? And
Yeah, yeah,
helping Peter Frampton out, and just it goes on and on and on and on. But the thing about Jimmy is that he's a pro, and in this industry, they're hard to come by. Guys can be great guys. They're just great guys, and they give you the shirt off their back, but it is a business.
sure.
And hey, man, this needs to be done. We need to get this done. And we're going to go play the show. You need to be ready. None of this. Well, I'm not sure. So the word pro gets tossed around a lot, but
Sure.
Jimmy Waldo is the definition of
After
pro.
all his years of experience in the music business, how could he not be? Now, with that being said, have you guys even started rehearsing for a tour, or when do you plan to start rehearsing?
Oh, we don't rehearse.
You just go out there and do it. That's I love that.
Everybody rehearsals on their own. I think Jimmy runs the set like twice a day. I'm not sure if you can see behind me, but I'm sitting in the control room. My drums are over there. I have a program that brings up all the song. I have a session, no drums on it, and I just play it down. The real truth to the matter is you just really need to buff up on it just to remember those little things. But
Yeah.
these guys have played it so many times, and obviously I played it a million times as well, all the shows and everything. It comes right back. We're not a band that needs to go rehearse,
No,
for
no.
hours.
And I think too with this band that you could be a band very much like Van Halen in the sense that, when David Lee Roth left the band, everybody thought Van Halen was over, but they were able to carry on and be just as successful. And I think this band has the potential to do that. Now, let me ask you. So obviously you got the big tour with Onslaught coming up. Um, do you plan after that? Have you guys already started working on new music, or are you going to wait till after the tour?
Let's just put it this way. Nothing's off the table.
Okay.
Let's
Yeah.
just leave it there. The world is our oyster. Yes, there's just
Possibilities.
Everything's possible. There's a possibility that I might be singing. No, well, no,
Yeah.
I can guarantee you that ain't going to happen, and I can guarantee you Giles ain't playing the drums. So,
Okay. Okay. There
no,
you go.
we're very aware of um, what we're doing, as it says, in a business kind of way, and also um, we're very fortunate and very blessed that, people like you and other people that are interested. Because if you weren't interested and the fans weren't interested, what are we going to do? We're
It's a
going
great,
to do.
must be a great feeling that you finally have this opportunity that's been awaiting you all these years, and you're finally getting the chance in North America of all places to go out there.
Well, let me tell you a story. It's yes and no. It's bittersweet because Bill's not here. But let me tell you a
Sure.
story that wraps this one up real quick. Bill and I are sitting backstage at the gig where we were playing in Greece, where we recorded the video, and the opening band's on, and it's packed, and all I hear is Warlord, Warlord, while the band's playing over the top of them. Okay, and then I think it was like 1,200 maybe. It wasn't like
Yeah.
20,000.
Yeah.
But it was loud and it was crazy. If you watch that video, man, those fans are like
Like, hey,
screaming.
it's our people calling us.
Oh no, no, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It was two things. We both looked at each other and there was the feeling of like, wow, this is what Iron Maiden feels like,
You
every time
arrived.
they
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And there was a feeling, and I think he said it or I said it, and he said, what took so long?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it is bittersweet, I'm glad I'm in good health and I take care of myself and I can do this and it's no problem. I'm probably playing better and stronger than I ever have, but it's bittersweet that Bill's not here.
Sure.
And
Sure.
and he never really got to experience that
Yeah.
quote tour. We played shows, but
Yeah.
it wasn't tours. It was like,
And
okay,
he at least
how can
got
we
that little tiny taste that you just talked about, you know?
Oh
Um,
no, he got it and it's documented in the Live in
yeah.
Athens and it's out there.
Yeah. And I got to ask Mark before I let you go. Um, talking about drummers, like who were the guys that influenced you growing up?
My big thing was a drummer named Ensley Dunbar.
Oh
If
yeah, White Snake. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, way before that. If you listen to the first three Journey albums
Okay.
before Steve Perry, I'm sitting in my parents' house with the turntable because there was no computer or anything like that.
Sure. Sure.
His style, and they were a Bay Area band. I was raised in San Jose,
Uh-huh.
San Francisco,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they played around there all the time. And I saw Ensley Dunbar. First guy that ever saw invert a China, turn the China
Uh,
over, that has become standard these days. He was the guy that played traditional grip like I play.
yeah.
He was a guy that actually, first time I saw a band that like the drummer was like I don't want to say highlight, but he was tearing it up. And I'm
Sure.
like 25 feet from him.
Wow.
And he's a big guy. He's
Yeah,
much
he's been around for years. Don't hear too much about him anymore, but he is a legend. I mean,
he's but his style, he
yeah.
had it was a little jazz, but not a lot
Yeah.
of jazz, but it had that rhythm and float to it. There was a float like with the hi-hat, and there was everything was about groove as much as he tore it up. And a lot of these other guys were kind of up and down, beating and
Sure.
bashing. He could do that, but it was linear.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I totally
yeah. I
grabbed
don't know
that.
if you know this, Mark, but in the 1990s, when Kiss's drummer Eric Carr died of cancer, he was one of the guys they were considering to replace him, but they ended up going with Eric Singer, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
well, a lot of those drummers, guys like Ainsley and stuff, make the rounds, but if they're not going to fit in a
yeah.
certain band, I mean, Jimmy Waldo told me that Alcatraz, he auditioned for Alcatraz too, you know.
Wow, wow.
But no, Ainsley's kind of his own guy per se. But
Yeah,
I'll never forget those Journey records and just watching him,
wow. Yeah,
tear it up. And I stole so much from him, but he still has to me like the worst tom-tom sound in rock and roll history. He uses those Ludwig silver dot heads. I'm sorry. Just love the guy, love his playing. I owe him a lot as far as I stole so much of his theory and his
talking about him today, I think you're
Oh,
giving
but
the
my
man his
God,
dues.
please.
Yeah,
You use some Remo heads, man. I mean, if you listen to those Whitesnake albums, those toms are horror. They're horrible.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm sorry, but great player. Love the guy, but come on, man. You
Well,
know?
final question for you today, Bill. Now that you're back and we've got this new technology, I mean, there's a time we wouldn't have been able to do an interview like this. I love the modern technology. How much are you loving this? The technology that's here today that wasn't back in the day.
No, I love it. I'm half and half because here in the recording studio, I'm sitting in front of a big analog console.
Yeah,
Everything that I record my drum screw is kind of like a vintage, old school Neve
It's cool.
module,
Yeah.
EMS, all that stuff. But it goes to a computer. I
Yeah.
don't have a tape machine. So I use a computer for that, and I love that. The fact that you can do this is great. The fact that, these what people don't understand. It was so, I mean, when I was growing up, if they even listed the guy's name and even possibly what kind of drums he played on a record, you were like thankful. Like now you can tell how a guy ties his shoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you go on the internet and you can tell what he eats for breakfast that day. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy. And then what comes with that is so much information and knowledge and things that you can steal
Wow. Yeah.
playing wise. It's right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
Mark, I've had a great time getting to know you and chatting with you. I'd love to have you back on the show once the tour kicks off. Um,
awesome.
this will be going up tomorrow. I'll be sure you get the link. Thanks for doing it. Okay.
No problem. What part of the state are you in?
Beautiful Long Beach, California.
Oh, you coming up to the show?
Yeah, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. I was just checking out the tour announcement, so I'm gonna see what dates playing. I'm gonna do my best to get there.
Yeah. Let us know. We'll definitely take care of you.
I
Absolutely take
appreciate
care
that,
of you.
Mark. I'll do that. Thank you so much.
Let us know. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anytime, brother. Bye bye.
Bye bye.